Ciao, tutti, and welcome back to the Paddocks. We are back for one of my personal favorite races on the calendar, Monza. On tonight's episode, you have myself, Amy, Melissa, and Ito. We are rocking just the trio of us tonight. This weekend has been full of drama, people. So we are going to jump right into it. Buckle up, grab a snack, maybe a drink. It could be a long one. So I'm going to kick us off with some of the track changes that we had this year. They fully resurfaced the track, and turns 1 and 2 are now a little bit wider and more curved, which, while that doesn't sound like a lot, it does really change the track drastically.
And speaking of drama, earlier this week, Tuesday, to be exact, Williams had announced that Logan would be replaced for the remaining 9 races of this season. F2 driver Franco Colapinto replaces Logan for the remainder of the season. And if we're being honest, no shade, no offense to Franco. He's completely out of this discussion. I am not too happy with this decision, as it feels just messy and unfair to both drivers.
I'm not even going to apologize, people. I screamed. I was actually at lunch with my mother, and she was legitimately concerned at one point because I just kept saying the words, "no way," because I thought that this was a joke. I literally thought that this was a joke because they announced Franco before they announced that Logan was leaving. So I was like, this has to be an error. Some intern has to have royally effed up or something. Like, I just didn't believe it. I have so many feelings about this, but I'm going to attempt, keywords being attempt here, to try to keep this short. I well and truly think that James Vowles and Williams brought Logan up way too early from Formula 2 because they desperately needed to fill the open seat that they had. And they didn't have any other options. But now they're pulling another Formula 2 driver up too early to replace Logan. But this time they're more or less screwing him over because, for people who aren't F2 fans or don't understand F2 rules, since Franco will be driving for 9 Formula 1 races, he is not able to go back to F2 because there's a 3-race limit outside of the series. He's currently only halfway through the season in F2, and it's his rookie year, which is just crazy to think about. So he's going to basically do these 9 F1 races where my assumption is he'll likely flop or not be super impressive. And then, like, let's be honest, what does he do next? Does he just sit in limbo like Liam Lawson, which just feels like a really bad move to me? I just have so many feelings on this. And then it gets kind of a little worse for Franco. Not even that saying that the move is bad for him. I think it's questionable. But the weekend did not start off on the best foot for him. Williams spelled Franco's name wrong. Yes, you heard me say that correctly. Williams spelled his name wrong above his side of the garage. Like, they got Franco right, but they spelled Colapinto completely wrong. It was giving absolute shit show vibes, if you ask me.
It really was, because I feel like it's just disrespectful in a way to Franco. I'm very nitpicky on the way that my first and last name is pronounced. I'm a middle name kid. I go by my middle name because it's just easier for the world. So again, if I were Franco, I'd be pretty upset over this error.
Honestly, I'm upset for him. But as a fellow middle name kid girly, it's just a pet peeve of mine. Like, you have so many places to check the spelling of someone's name, and you still get it wrong. Come on. Also, is it Williams that puts up the signs, or is it like the track themselves? Because that would change who to blame, but also the severity of the blame I would put on someone's feet in my brain. Like, if it were Williams, get your driver's name right, but if it's the track that puts up the signs, then check with the team, check the entrance list of the drivers, because I bet it's spelled right there, unless of course it's spelled wrong there, and then that's a whole other story.
You are right. I did think about the fact that, like, it depends on who puts the signage up, but even still, like, as somebody who worked in the signage world, like, you generally get approval from multiple sources. So, like, this had to have been approved by somebody else, at least more than one person, before this went up, which just feels crazy to know that it did. They did fix it, like, well before the weekend started, so, like, not a massive deal, but it is what it is. If you've been listening to PGP for a while, you know we love a fun fact. If I had a bell right now for fun facts, I would ding it, because we always love a fun fact. So here it is. Franco Colapinto is the first driver to race under the number 43, which I just think is really fun. I love looking at who's shared driver numbers with other drivers, who's the only driver with their number. And Franco was one of those drivers where he is the first.
Amen. And to me, what numbers they pick is so like big deal, because do they pick a unique number, for example, that's never been raced with before? Do they pick a number that has history associated with it? Like, for example, Nicholas Latifi with the number 6, what was famously used by Nico Rosberg. Like, that whole decision-making process, and if they go with a unique number, what other history is there behind it? Like, do they have a connection with it? Anyway, I won't go on a numerology tangent, because I could talk for hours. But on the topic of Franco facts, he's actually the first Argentine driver since 2001, when it was Gaston Mazzacane for the first race, only, sadly, that raced in F1.
We also had some specialty Ferrari suits. The carbon was honestly a really good look, but per usual, I'm going to complain about the HP and the Shell logo, because they look so weird with the lack of the transparent background. It makes me cringe every time I see it. But those frickin' suits are so good. I was a little disappointed they didn't also give us a special car livery, but like, oh well, you probably couldn't, because the car is probably too heavy and they probably need to keep weight down. So I get it, but also, like, it would have been cool to see, because it's Monza, it's Ferrari, it's, what do you expect?
I agree. I am obsessed with the suits, to say the least. The black and yellow is just really beautiful with, like, the rest of the Ferrari colors and everything. But that double HP logo is just so ugly. I hate it a lot. I hate that whole name change, but we won't go into that. I can live with the Shell logo, because at least it has some of that Ferrari vibe into it. But I will forever hate the HP. But you mentioned the liveries, Amy, and it brought me back to Miami when they teased the blues and everything, and nothing came out of that. So I knew not to have my expectations high for that.
I mean, on the livery front, they could have made it so easy on themselves. Like, just strip the car. Just strip the car. The suits are black fiber or carbon. So why not do the same thing with the car? The car gets lighter. Granted, there's car minimum weight and stuff like that, so maybe that's why they didn't strip it. But still, come on. A stripped car is faster. We know this. But anyway, on the topic of the suits, I'm going to echo the girls, because the logo's eyesore. I mean, I get the shell, like, it's yellow, it's historic and everything. It's not as much of an eyesore, but the HP, oh god. Like, I was ready to purchase merch, and remember, F1 merch, not cheap. And then I saw the HP and I was like, no, just no.
Now, of course, keeping the topic of the Ferrari boys, because let's be honest, we can all talk about them all day. I was also obsessed with their helmets. I am a fan of Charles, but Carlos, I will say, probably had the best helmet of the weekend. That stallion and everything on that, just the detailing was just a masterpiece, chef's kiss. And I have to give a special shout out to Yuki because his was really neat too. It looked like he had like little cartoons on it, and then like in a little F1 car, and it just screams Yuki, and I was just living for it.
And then leading into free practice sessions, Williams announced 2 new sponsors. One before FP1, which was Globant, who is a leading digital transformation company. And then before FP2, they announced Mercado Libre, which is an e-commerce and digital payment giant in Latin America. You'll see Mercado's iconic handshake logo on the FW46 starting with the upcoming Azerbaijan race. So keep an eye out for that. The timing felt interesting. I also you don't see teams announce new sponsors with like 9 races to go in a season. That's not normally a thing.
Communal brain cell, Amy, because that was my exact reaction. Then again, they announced Franco, South American. So maybe it's all linked. Maybe the reason why Franco in particular got promoted was because of that new sponsor. Maybe. Because, remember, dare I say, his F2 season, not outstanding.
Now, while there was a lot of drama leading into free practice 1 honestly started with a bang. Pun not intended, y'all. For the first free practice, we had Kimi Antonelli in George Russell's Mercedes. And he actually topped the charts at the start with soft tires, though, keep that in mind. And the hype train was off and rolling. You could have seen me rolling my eyes repeatedly, but that's a whole different story. My big takeaway was the fact that Mercedes asked Kimi for feedback at the start, and he wasn't actually able to give them any feedback. It really solidified for me why I felt that he is too young and not ready for the seat. Sorry, not sorry. I said what I said.
Again, I agree because I feel like the best idea probably would have been to put him in a reserve seat for a year. Or, I don't know, let him race in F2 again and then do the whole reserve seat shebang. And then just promote him. There's just a lot of other options besides him. I'm looking at Mick. I'm looking at Liam. There's a lot of other drivers very, very well deserving of the spot. And I mean, I get it. He could be the next possible Max Verstappen, but still, like, he's literally a child.
Amen to everything you just said, Mel. Like, but apparently, for example, with the Liam option, apparently he was a contender, but Red Bull wanted a buyback clause in the contract so that in case he did perform, which it's Liam, he probably would because he proved that in RB last year, Red Bull as a whole would have had the right to buy him back, which I get, he's their academy driver, etc. But at the same time, if he leaves the nest, quote unquote, let him leave. Like, if you let him open the door to leaving, just let him go. But anyway, on the other hand, Mick, oh my god, yes. He's your reserve driver. He's just been sitting there. Come on. he has experience.
So that Liam situation was actually in reference to the open Williams seat with Logan leaving. Apparently, James Vowles originally wanted Liam for the seat, but Red Bull wasn't willing to let Liam go without stipulations, which I do understand. But I don't know. Toto's going to do what Toto's going to do. In FP1, we had about 50 minutes left in the session, and Kimi put the car into the wall at Parabolica. He hadn't even had 2 flying laps. It red flagged the session for at least a little bit. I was personally very worried that he was going to do major damage to George's car, which had a brand new power unit in it. Definitely not a great way to spend your first FP1 session. I personally think he got a little too big for his boots. I think he was going way too fast for just getting to know a Formula One car. That's got a lot more oomph than an F2 car.
Now, all I know is if I was George, I'd be fuming given that all these upgrades going into the weekend and then it just crashes out and it's not even my fault. It's the reaction when the camera panned out to him was hilarious. So again, same.
I mean, we all can agree on that, honestly. But then again, the safety car put it in the wall too in a testing session pre-race weekend, so no one's immune, I guess.
You are not wrong. That did happen. The session did at least get to proceed as normal. I will say it looked like Parabolica and the newbies did not get along because Franco went off there a little bit too at the end of the session. He kept the car out of the wall, thank God, and got out through the gravel, but it just seemed to catch the newbies out. And it is a track that they have driven, so it's not like they don't know what this track layout looks like. That can't be the reason. But, I mean, it is your first FP1 in a Formula One car. He literally just got pulled out of F2, so there are nerves. I do get it, but oh my God.
I will say I was reading online that Parabolica is a pretty tricky spot on the track in general for those well-seasoned drivers. They've had similar issues too, but I mean, that difference between driving an F2 car and into an F1 car, I mean, I can only imagine. So again, that's why practice is important before bringing in these very, very young, inexperienced drivers.
We also had Esty Bestie spinning like a damn ballerina at the end of the session. It gave me a good giggle. He caught it. Everything was fine. The car is fine, but it was definitely a ballerina moment.
Dying because your top 3 for the first session were Max in P1, followed by Charles and Lando.
At the start of the FP2 session, we still didn't really know if Kimi's crash did any damage to George's new power unit, which is really not how you want to start an FP2 session when, practice is important, people.
Now, I am glad the mechanics were able to fix this car in such a short amount of time because we've seen it not happen before with other drivers. But it looked like very early on, George was complaining about some issues within the cockpit. He started mentioning it earlier, so who knows how that all worked out for him.
I will say one of my favorite things about Monza is the fans because they find the coolest spots to watch the race. There were fans in trees. It's just iconic. I have to give a massive shout out though to our European racing queen, Miss KC. She has been at 4 of the last few races this season, and she has been just giving us all of the content, and I'm so happy for her. She's had so much fun. I will say the thing that had me absolutely dying in FP2 was the way that someone's laugh was coming through the radio when Bono was talking to Lewis. I don't think I've ever heard that happen before.
Yeah, it definitely made me cackle a bit when he had mentioned hearing someone laugh because imagine how loud you have to be laughing for a mic to pick you up over your radio. And of course, in typical Haas fashion, at this point, I just have to say it. K-Mag got off the road and into the barrier. A red flag was brought out, but he is okay at least. That's the most important part. But again, at this point, I'm not surprised this happens to the man or to the team in general. But we had a little switch up for the top three in this session because we had Lewis in P1, followed by Lando again, and Carlos. Now, going into the next day before FP3, some other big news broke out. Now, this isn't as breaking because we all knew it was going to happen, but literally just hours at 9 a.m. according to Laura Winter, we love her, Mercedes had announced that Kimi Antonelli will be joining the team for the 2025 season. They really made sure to wait till he turned 18 to announce the news because there was a lot of scandal around that. But at this point, how many rookies will we have for next year?
We will have 4. Now, if you have listened to a PGP episode recently, you have heard me talk about this before, but I really and truly think that Toto has lost the plot. This kid, yes, he's a literal child, people, didn't even get 2 full laps in an FP1 session before crashing the car. I get it. It makes sense to announce it on home turf for him because, you know, the Italian boy, but I just don't get it. I know that Toto and Mercedes have been involved with Kimi since he was 11, which I do find really interesting, but like he literally just turned 18 like this race weekend. And I just don't get it. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. I think this is going to blow up in their face. But on a slightly lighter note, at least for me, we had the Iceman himself, Kimi Räikkönen, in the Sauber garage, which then was followed by a Mattia Binotto jump scare, for me at least. I don't know if seeing him on screen made anybody else lose their mind, but I was not prepared.
Yeah, definitely wasn't prepared on either fronts, in a good and in a bad way. But I mean, seeing the OG Kimi, because that's how we have to refer to him now, because otherwise confusion galore, just made my heart. I feel like that's Monza for you though. Monza and Monaco are so historic that you see a lot of old iconic drivers just randomly show up. And I love that. But then again, the jokesters, of course, had to make a joke out of it and say, oh, Sauber/Audi wants him back for next year, so that's why he was there. Well, while I could see Kimi pulling a stunt like that because it's Kimi, sorry, OG Kimi, don't think baby Kimi could pull a stunt like that just yet. I don't think he wants to. He's been retired for a while.
There did come a point where Kevin Magnussen was told to immediately stop his car on track at that. That had me really nervous. I do not like those kinds of situations. That always has my heart in my throat. I'm not a fan. Guys, please don't do that to me anymore.
Now, your top 3 for the final practice session of the weekend was Lewis and P1. Love it. Followed by George and Charles.
Now, let's move into what I always think is my personal favorite part of a race weekend, and that is qualifying. So we're going to kick it off with Q1 because, of course, we had about 6 minutes left in Q1, and Checo was about to be, like, out. And I don't know what was going on with him. It, at this point, just makes me shake my head. I don't know what Red Bull's doing.
No, seriously, especially given their history with other past drivers. But with Checo, I am no longer surprised this happens. It actually just makes it hard to root for a fellow Latino because I want him to do well. But yeah, let's leave it at that.
At least you have Franco now. But Checo, like, thankfully he was able to pull it out of his bag because I would not have wanted to be a fly on the wall in that debrief if he didn't. Because we all know what Red Bull's like.
For real. I have a little theory about next season, given that they haven't announced V-Carb's team driver yet. But that's another discussion for a different day. Now, of course, quali session is not quali session with some drama because Oscar had been noted by the stewards for an unsafe release, and it would be investigated after the session.
Max and Oscar had my heart stopping, as always, it seems. I don't know why all of these drivers like to give us severe heart palpitations. I am really not a fan.
No, same, because I literally scream every single time something is like close to happening, but I'm just glad they have those fast reflexes that they have because couldn't be me. Could not be me. But speaking of more drama, Franco unfortunately got into the gravel, but he was able to save himself, which was actually kind of cool to see how like they always like maneuver. Again, those fast reflexes, dude.
Sadly, it still meant he was out in Q1, which breaks my heart because he was trying so hard to get into Q2. And in my opinion, he probably could have had it if he didn't put it in the gravel.
Now again, Haas being Haas, K-Mag got off the track and he brought in the yellow flag for a very, very hot second. I was feeling like this whole quality session was just going to be very spicy.
Haas having car issues should really surprise nobody at this point. That car is just like unimpressive. And that's being nice. Daniel Joseph Ricciardo, per usual, gave me heart palpitations. I mean, I will say, at least he was the lead Red Bull. Yes, it was only the 6th time. I'm being realistic here, people. But, like, it stresses me out. I want to see him do well. I know people are over him, but, like, sue me.
And then, of course, we have Sauber. Them being last in quali is just par for the course right now because they're still sitting at 0 points in the constructors. I don't know what to say, guys. Pull it out of the bag.
And out in Q1, we lost Yuki, Lance, Franco, which wasn't really a surprise given his little moment. But if you compare that to where Alex finished in the end of Q1 in 8th, it does make things a little concerning. We also lost Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, which is generally your usual suspects. Now, Q2 was delayed due to gravel being on track. I loved the fact that David Coulthard said that they pulled out the witch's brooms to clear the track. His commentary just always gives me a giggle.
I mean, isn't that what those particular brooms are actually called? But anyway, his comment about how high-tech everything is, yet they're using those brooms, had me dead. But then again, that's Formula One for you. High-tech in some areas and super low-tech in others.
And then before the session started, we actually got a little bit of radio message from Yuki. His radio engineer told him to, quote, let's keep it clean on the radio, which Yuki wasn't even being bad, people. Like, it was just not helpful because he kept saying that it was, quote, ridiculous, which helps nobody. David Coulthard also pointed that out, which thank you for saying that, DC. That makes me feel a little less crazy. He did also point out that apparently Yuki has a new race engineer this weekend, which I found a little odd. I'm not sure if it's just for the Monza weekend or if it's like a new race engineer moving forward. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens.
No, literally, when I heard that, I was just like, you can't even say anything vulgar for that type of reaction. But thinking maybe, I'm assuming, given where their headquarters are at, VCARB, it may have been an Italian engineer, so maybe ridiculous does translate into something vulgar. But if it's anything like the Spanish language, I don't think so. But that's my assumption right there.
Plus, it's Yuki. It wouldn't be a race weekend without his, dare I say, colorful language.
Now, for my One Direction girlies, we got a Louis Tomlinson sighting in the Ferrari garage. I knew I picked the right one to stand way back when they were grouped together. However, out in Q2, we saw Alonso, Danny Rick, K-Mag, Gasly, and Ocon get knocked out. Now ahead of Q3, for those who didn't know, whoever gets the pole this weekend gets a beautiful gold ring with gemstones of the Italian flag, representing the history of Monza and symbolizing the checkered flag in general. And to be honest, if I knew I'd be getting this ring for getting pole, I'd be speeding down the tempo speed.
Lando clearly agrees with you, though I wonder whether his pole curse will continue to haunt him, as he has never led a race after lap 1 if he started on pole.
The top 10 lines up as follows. P1, Lando Norris. P2, Oscar Piastri. P3, George Russell. P4, Charles Leclerc. P5, Carlos Sainz. P6, Lewis Hamilton. P7, Max Verstappen. P8, Checo Perez. P9, Alex Albon. And P10 was Nico Hülkenberg. I know I could hear Megan screaming all the way from Pennsylvania. I feel like we're about to see a major shift coming for Red Bull, and I kind of love it. Even though it hurts my heart a little bit as the Red Bull girl, I like seeing the fight that's coming. Now, post-qualifying, McLaren received a 10,000 euro, which is about 11,000 US dollars-ish, of a fine for Oscar Piastri's unsafe release in front of Max in qualifying.
The fine is steep, at least for us mere mortals, but if something does go wrong, like with an unsafe release, it could be potentially deadly, so I feel like it's justified still.
Now, while qualifying was intense, it's time to get to the meat and potatoes, the race day, everyone's favorite. And at least with the start, we finally got a good start for Lando Norris. Thank God. And I apparently spoke too soon because Oscar Piastri just came out of nowhere and had me on the floor. I was really hoping that Lando was not going to lose his lead, but I had to jinx it the minute I wrote finally a good start for Lando when I was writing my notes as I was watching the race. And I think I need to not say that anymore because I swear I jinx him when I do it. I'm sorry, kid.
Yeah, I would stop doing that, Amy, if I were you, because pole curse lives another day.
I'm not going to complain because guess who was in second? Charles. I literally was screaming when that happened. It was just an insane start to the whole race.
It very much feels like both Oscar and Charles said bet when they saw Lando in P1.
I all of a sudden during the race looked up and noticed that Nico Hülkenberg was down 6 places in 16th after lap 2. I don't know what I missed, but like he lost all the places.
Literally so much happened on that first lap, but in the replay, and when they do like the different point of views and all that stuff, I think he like lost something in that like first turn and like got into the gravel because I do remember seeing that like little cloud of dirt smoke go up.
We then had Checo complaining about George. The Red Bull boys were being absolute tattletales this race. I don't know what was in the water for them, but they were just sassy.
Honestly, what else is new? But George seems to have front wing damage due to a bollard, according to DC, in the runoff area. So he might be justified in his complaining, Checo, that is. It does look, shall we say, the front wing, rather interesting.
Now you know real racing is back when the Red Bull boys are complaining about the Mercedes boys. Like, what else is new?
It's giving that one bodice meme which says traditions.
I do wonder how tense the McLaren boys are going to be after that Oscar overtake because I smell drama.
For real, because at this point in the race, they definitely couldn't give any race orders to swap. You had Charles in between them, and Lando at this point had to defend against Carlos, aka his bestie, on his own birthday. Just a lot for little Lando today.
It was all too much for little Lando Norris. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to. The late breaking from Oscar was honestly really gorgeous, though. I have no notes for him.
Now, I know we mentioned that George had some damage to his wing, but literally when they did that close up, it was nasty. I at this point was pretty surprised they haven't brought him in to like do a front wing change and everything. Because when you see it, I literally was just like, yeah, Checo might be right about that danger he mentioned.
It was literally hanging by a string. I was surprised he wasn't told by like race control that he had to come in.
Exactly. And poor Yuki had to DNF on the 8th lap due to Nico hitting his side pod. I just know that man is cursing up a storm over his radio, and rightfully so.
His luck in Monza is just non existent. He has been here 4 times. 4. And only taken the start twice. And now DNF'd. Come on, people. Come on. Monza gods. Give Yuki a break.
I swear, when Nico Rosberg took that photo of on track, that he cursed the whole race. Like, it just caused maximum chaos.
Guess he didn't learn his lesson from last year with the track photos, because remember last year's chaotic start too?
Now, I love chaos, but my God, it literally was just like a lot, and I was just not ready for that much craziness.
We got a 5-second penalty for Danny Rick for forcing a car off track. We also got a 10-second penalty for Nico Hülkenberg for causing a collision, the one that led to Yuki's retirement. Just all the chaos. All of it.
Actually, Danny was involved in that tangle as well. So both penalties are actually related to Yuki's retirement. And honestly, after seeing the incident, the penalties feel expected. And I'm glad kind of they happened.
We had Lando Norris getting told super last minute to come into the pits. And oh my God, he had the biggest lockup. It really just felt like such a late call. Like, he almost missed it, in my opinion. He came in real hot. He hit the bollard and everything on entry. That was a little intense.
It definitely feels like someone was caught napping, because it led to Lando's race, in my opinion, becoming undone. As first we had him in the gravel, then he was told to come into the pits way too late, and he hit the bollard on it was the pit marker, never mind, on pit entry, and then he was likely caught speeding in the pit lane, even though it wasn't recorded as speeding, probably because he was slow enough when it was measured, but it still felt like he was speeding. And I feel like the gravel threw off his concentration, because it's just snowballed from there.
McLaren made an undercut call that I was really nervous wasn't going to actually like work out for them. It did, but I was on the edge of my seat to see if it was actually going to pan out. We had another penalty come through for Danny Rick. This time was 10 seconds for failing to serve his penalty right, which was really a fail by the team, and the team member like immediately knew it too, because the playback that they did showed that he touched the front wing and like he held his hands up, clenched them. Like, he immediately just kind of looked like he was saying, "Ah, fuck." Like, he just kind of knew immediately that he messed up. And I feel really bad. I bet you the team's probably real pissed.
Oh, they definitely were. But again, continuing on the hot mess that they were this weekend, Haas, again. K-Mac, that's who it was. I blanked out who it was for a sec. K-Mac, he locked up and hit one of the Alpines. He's literally just out here playing bumper cars at this point. And something so rare to see from the Red Bull pit crew, a terrible pit stop, 6.2 second for Max. That was, I literally, my jaw was on the floor watching that happen.
McLaren sent through a radio message that I am still trying to wrap my brain around, and it was, "You're allowed to race Oscar Papaya rules." Y'all really want to tell Lando Norris that? I mean, again, we don't really know what that means, but it makes me nervous, and that came through on like lap 24.
I feel like everyone wants to know what papaya rules means, but if I dare venture a guess, I would say it's something very similar to Multi 21. And for the uninitiated, Multi 21 was when Sebastian Vettel was told to Multi 21, which basically meant let Mark Webber at RB pass by. Well, turns out he didn't let him pass, led to tension, and honestly, if papaya rules mean something similar, it's going to be a very awkward cold opener.
We then had Oscar set yet another fastest lap. The F1 TV team coined the term Aussie rules, which I personally think is way better.
Literally, Oscar was just a man on a mission this weekend, or should I say this race in general.
He had the taste of victory, and it feels like he wants another one. He's like, if Lando can have two, so can I.
There was a 10-second penalty that came through for Kevin Magnussen for causing a collision with Pierre Gasly. The kind of penalty that generally comes with 2 penalty points on top of it. The man already has 10 points. The maximum is 12. Kevin could literally be looking at a race ban for Baku. And I think that's bonkers.
Literally, because so much was going on, and all I could think all this whole Grand Prix is, forget the Monza curse. May she rest in peace. The Rosberg curse is alive and well and doing her damn thing.
Max's radio message to GP, where he asks, when it's possible to defend, do you want me to race him? And GP responds, yes, please. Yep. Guys, it's lap 37 of a 53-lap race. Can we please not be this chill? It felt very weird, but also made me laugh my ass off.
Max on the radio is so funny. I mean, he's funny in general, but later on, he would also end up giving orders. Come on. Funny.
Now, while it looked like some teams were doing a one-stop strategy, McLaren decided to do a two-stop strategy, and it really did not work in favor of them.
Honestly, seeing the Ferraris in the lead was not something I expected.
If we get a Ferrari double podium, dare I say I hope for a 1-2, I'm gonna scream. And apparently, I was psychic because they got a 1-2 for a hot minute.
We then had Checo being stuck behind Kevin Magnussen, who, made that Haas as wide as he humanly possibly could.
And we all know K-Mag definitely does not make it easy for any driver to overtake. I do love that the man always delivers some excitement come race weekend.
Oscar's overtake on Carlos had me literally about to spill my coffee, which is not a good thing because, I'm a girl who needs her caffeination.
Now, Charles is not one to sass his engineers during a race. He's very passive. We all know that. But I literally was screaming at his response to his engineer, just being like, don't ask me any questions. So, essentially, he was just like, just leave me alone and let me focus, please.
To be fair, I understand the guy because Charles is driving the race of his life with his way too old, hard tires. I mean, they give tire age guidelines for a reason, and he is, at least at this point in the race, close to surpassing those. And honestly, I know why they pitted Oscar recently. They were definitely hoping that fresher tires on his car would mean he could get the lead from Charles, but Charles just said no. And I love that. It's giving, your tires can't degrade if you don't let them.
The way I need to be in that McLaren debrief room, because oh my God, it's going to be so rough.
You just know someone will pop off in there today. However, Charles won in Monaco and he wins in Monza. He is the winner of the Italian Grand Prix.
Oh my God, that was not the race winner that I expected, if I'm being really honest, guys. I'm sorry, but McLaren 1000% is kicking themselves for bidding it with pulling Oscar in. I feel like McLaren absolutely screwed themselves on this race. We did get fastest lap and third for Lando Norris. Oscar finished in second, which, like, yes, that's great points for McLaren, but they could have had a 1-2 if I'm being really honest.
Amen. But then again, as a Ferrari girly and as a Monza stan, thank y'all. I did my first watch of the race on a very crowded train. I mean, I was literally standing in the aisle. And let's just say I got some very strange looks for my behavior watching that last lap. Thank God I wasn't in the quiet car though, because that would have given me even more stares.
We got a Mamma Mia out of Charles, which it's been a while since we've had one of those. He also got Driver of the Day, which I think is fantastic.
Honestly, his and Ferrari's excitement in general is so cute and so deserved. I would have loved to have subtitles though while he was doing his cool down lap, because my Italian is very basic, and dare I say I was struggling to understand what he was saying. Also, fun fact, it's iconic that Charles, number 16, won round 16 in Monza as a Ferrari driver. Iconic.
Now, I always love how the Ferrari pit crew just celebrates their drivers' wins and everything, but literally what made me go cry in the corner of a club was watching Charles and Arthur hug it out. It was just so beautiful.
For me, it was the fact that Nico Rosberg was the one doing the post-race interviews after cursing the whole entire race.
Honestly, it's on par for Nico, so.
I think my favorite part of Nico doing the post-race interviews was just when Charles came up and he was just like, Charles, you are the king of Italy right now. Like, literally, Nico, I cannot. And that crowd in general was just so loud. You could barely hear, like, them talking in general. Like, that energy was just off the walls.
I loved it. And honestly, as it should be for the King of Italy, because I'm 100% behind Nico on this, because he's definitely the King of Italy. At least right now. Also, Charles saying that his second win at Monza was just as special as his first one. It's just giving cuteness vibes. And then him switching into Italian was just cherry on top. Thanks, Nico, for translating on the fly. Because, again, Italian, very basic.
I just know that Casey must be having so much fun in Monza, especially because it was a Ferrari win. Like, oh my God.
I literally never been more jealous of someone. Casey, we love you. I love you. But no, she definitely mentioned like she was in the grandstands and there was some Tifosi crying. I would be too.
I'm definitely kicking myself for not taking my mom up on the offer to get tickets and make the 3-hour drive down. Definitely kicking myself.
Honestly, the thing that had me sobbing, literally sobbing in my living room, was the crowd singing. Oh my God. I will never get over that.
I mean, if I had a banger national anthem like the Italian anthem, I would be yelling, not singing, because I can't sing, my heart out.
And then we got some breaking news in the post-race interviews, which is the fact that stewards confirmed that Kevin Magnussen would be receiving 2 penalty points for causing a collision with Pierre, which means that he had 12 points in the last 12 months, which equals race ban. Holy crap. Race ban? Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, a few races ago, he was collecting those penalty points like they were giving out free cookies. But I thought he was doing a bit better, like the last couple of races, especially since summer break, so I wasn't too concerned. But guess I was wrong. The good thing, in quotes, is that they can still appeal the decision. Granted, it is a race ban. It's a deserved race ban, dare I say, because rules are rules. And I don't 100% see them appealing because he's leaving the team at the end of the year anyway. So what does it matter? Plus, if we get him out of the car, we likely get Ollie in the car, meaning practice for Ollie for next year.
We still don't actually, well, yes, Kevin is leaving the team. We still don't know where he's going, so I do wonder if he would push for the team to push to appeal. I don't know. I do think that the logical fill in for him in Baku is Ollie. Bring in the bear, please. Thank you. Love to see it.
Now we're off to Baku in 2 weeks. And honestly, I did not see the season turning out the way it currently is. I know we still have 8 more races and anything can happen. It's true. Love the sport. Now, as for my predictions, it's literally anyone's game at this point. I do see the McLaren boys up there on the podium. Hopefully, during this short race break, they can sort out their dilemma with race orders by then, because this whole papaya rules and everything, I don't think it's really working for them. However, my Delulu self says that Charles or Carlos will take that lovely P1, maybe a 1-2 finish, with Oscar up there. I don't know. Something tells me we'll be seeing a lot more savagery from Oscar in these last races. So, would love to see what happens.
I mean, hold on to your hats, people. We're in for a wild rest of the season, I feel like. We still have a lot more races to come. It's giving roller coaster, and I'm ready for it. I, as always, pulled out my pendulum for my predictions. They're pretty standard if you think about who it is. P1, Carlos Sainz. I mean, he didn't get P1 for his 30th birthday, so like P1 for the next available race? Hell yeah, that works. P2, Max Verstappen, assuming that Red Bull can make the changes they need to make to the car. I feel like he's going to be coming with a vengeance if Red Bull cannot figure out what the heck Adrian Newey took from that car when he left. Then they're going to have a really pissed off Dutchman. P3, Charles Leclerc. I mean, he literally was just on a podium, so like it makes sense for him to stay up there. The car seems to be looking decent. We'll see if doing well in Monza translates to doing well in Baku. I love Baku, so I'm interested to see how everybody is after a little bit of a break.
I mean, this season has already been a roller coaster compared to last season. Reminder, Max hasn't won in almost 3 months, aka 6 races, when he won all but 3 races last year. And if it were up to my dice, that winless streak of Max's would continue as it predicts a P1 of Pierre. But George and Nico follow close behind. Now, is this realistic? Is my dice ever realistic? No. But I'm still going to continue to use them. Now, why isn't this realistic? Or dare I say it's like 60% unrealistic? Because, one, we have Alpine at the top. Alpine's still a tractor. Don't think it will get there. And P3, I'm also gonna say, enjoy with caution, because Nico's never been on a podium. Granted, does that mean anything? Not necessarily, but still, it feels like he's allergic to podiums at this point, or is simply also a tractor, probably the latter. The only realistic podium prediction, hence the 60% thing, is George. But who knows? Maybe the dice know something I don't, and it will stun me with a Gasly, Russell, and Hulkenberg podium.
And to close out our episode, we have a moment of the weekend. Originally, I was going to go for a driver of the week, but really, moment of the weekend. It works. Roll with me, people. Charles got a win in Monza, but it's also Carlos Sainz's 30th birthday. So, it's a double win for Ferrari. I will say I'm a little disappointed that Fred Vasseur did not shove Carlos Sainz's face in some cake. He is off his game, apparently.
What a day and what a race. We're off to Azerbaijan next. How exciting. Love the castle layout of that track. I don't know. It's really cool to me. Anyways, let us know your thoughts on today's Grand Prix. Everywhere, we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except for Twitter. There we are Paddock Girls Pod. And a shameless plug to our Threads page, our girl Amy. She be rocking it out, so follow us there. Paddock Girls Podcast. It's been a fun weekend, and we will see you next time in the paddocks. Grazie e arrivederci.
Well done.
I was practicing that all day.
Ciao.
Ciao.